You know that feeling when you step onto a fancy boat and feel like $1,000,000? Well, multiply that by about 1,000,000,000. These yachts aren't just big and expensive, they're a whole other level of luxury. We're talking about boats with their own submarines, helipads, and even dinosaur bones built into the walls. Yeah, it's wild. And today, we're gonna show you exactly what that kind of money can buy on the open seas. Aviva. Welcome to Aviva, the 15th most expensive yacht in the world, coming in at a cool $250 million. This bad boy belongs to Joe Lewis, one of the richest dudes in the UK. He's not just some random rich guy, he's the owner of the Tavistock Group and has his fingers in all kinds of business pies. But forget about his land-based empire for a sec, cause his water game is next level. Aviva ain't your average boat. This thing was built in 2017 by Abiking and Rasmussen, a company that usually makes naval ships and cruise liners. It's the biggest yacht they've ever made, stretching 98 meters long. That's longer than a football field, folks. But here's the kicker. Inside this floating mansion is a full-sized indoor paddle tennis court. Yeah, you read that right. While other billionaires are sipping champagne on their sun decks, Joe can be working on his backhand. It's the first yacht ever to have an indoor tennis court. Talk about a game changer. But Aviva's not just about sports. This thing's packed with luxury. We're talking a piano for those classy evening soirees, an elevator cause stairs are so last century, a beach club for when you want to pretend you're not already on a boat, and a gym for when the tennis court just isn't enough. Under the hood, this beast is packing some serious power. It's got twin diesel-electric MTU engines that can pump out 3,862 horsepower. That's enough juice to push this steel and aluminum giant to a top speed of 20 knots. And with fuel tanks that can hold 364,505 liters, Aviva can cruise at 14 knots for days on end. But what's a palace without people to fill it? Aviva's got room for 16 guests. Perfect for when Joe wants to throw a floating party. And to keep everything shipshape, there's space for a crew of 35. Octopus. Say hello to Octopus, the 14th most expensive yacht in the world. This bad boy cost a whopping $285 million, and it's not your average party boat. Octopus used to belong to Paul Allen, one of the guys who started Microsoft. But this isn't just some tech nerd's toy. It's a full-on explorer's dream. We're talking about a yacht that's been on more adventures than Indiana Jones. This thing is massive, 126 meters long. That's like stacking up 42 school buses end to end. And it's not just big for show. Octopus is built for long-range exploration. It can cruise for 12,500 nautical miles without stopping. That's like going from New York to Tokyo and back and still having gas left in the tank. But here's where it gets really cool. Octopus isn't just about luxury, it's a floating research center. This yacht has been on scientific missions, exploration projects, and even rescue operations. Yeah, you heard that right. While other billionaires are sipping champagne, Paul Allen's yacht was out there doing actual good for the world. Now let's talk about the crazy features this thing has. First off, it's got not one, but 2 helicopters. Cause why have one when you can have 2, right? But that's not even the coolest part. Octopus has its own submarines. Yes, submarines, plural, as in more than one underwater vehicle just chilling on this boat. And if you're thinking, okay, but what about when I want to relax? Don't worry, they've got you covered. Octopus has 8 decks, a private elevator, a cinema, a gym, and spas. There's even an observation lounge with a glass bottom so you can watch fish while you're chilling on your mega yacht. But wait. There's more. Want to go for a swim? Hit up the bridge deck pool. Feeling hungry? There's a pizza oven on board. And if you're in the mood for some water sports, they've got jet skis, fishing equipment, and even a large SUV stored away. Now you might be thinking, who's gonna take care of all this stuff? Well, Octopus has a crew of 42 people. That's right, 42 people, just to make sure everything runs smoothly for the 12 lucky guests on board. Mirab, talking about a floating palace that's basically a luxury spa resort on steroids. Say hello to Mirab, the 13th most expensive yacht in the world. This beast belongs to Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, the former Prime Minister of Qatar. When you're running a country, you need a place to chill, right? Well, this guy decided to build his relaxation station on the water. Mirab isn't just big, it's massive. We're talking 133 meters of pure luxury. That's like lining up 40 SUVs end to end. And it's not just long, it's tall too. This thing has a beam of 19.5 meters and a draft of 4.9 meters. In normal people speak, that means it's wide and sits deep in the water. But here's where it gets really crazy. The spar on this yacht is so big, it's literally the largest spar that Winch Design has ever worked on. These are the guys who design interiors for the rich and famous, and even they were like, whoa, that's a lot of spar. And it's not just about size. This yacht is dripping with Middle Eastern style. We're talking marble floors with Arabic motifs that'll make you feel like you're in a floating palace from 1001 Nights. The whole thing has a beautiful navy blue steel hull with a white aluminum top. It's like a tuxedo for boats. But Al Mirab isn't just about looking pretty. This thing can move. It can hit a top speed of 23 knots. That's like 26 miles per hour, which doesn't sound fast until you remember we're talking about a floating building here. And get this, it's got anchor stabilizers. That means even when the sea gets rough, this yacht stays smooth. It's like having shock absorbers for the ocean. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how many people can party on this thing? Well, Al Mirab can fit about 60 guests. And here's the kicker. It's got room for 60 crew members too. That's right, there's one staff member for every guest. Polaris. This bad boy costs a cool $300 million, and it's been owned by more celebs than you can count. Polaris isn't just any old boat. This thing is huge. We're talking over 100 meters long. That's like lining up 20 limos end to end. And get this, it's got not one but two helipads. Yeah, you heard that right, two. 'Cause why have one when you can have two, right? But Polaris ain't just about size. This yacht is packed with so much luxury, it's ridiculous. We're talking swimming pools, saunas, and probably gold-plated everything. Okay, maybe not everything, but you get the idea. This thing is fancy with a capital F. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Polaris has had more famous owners than a Hollywood mansion. It's like the yacht version of musical chairs, but with billionaires. First, it was built for some Saudi businessman. Then it ended up with a Chinese tycoon. And in between, let's just say if you're rich and famous, you've probably set foot on this boat. But why is Polaris such a celeb magnet? Well, it might have something to do with the fact that it was designed by two of the biggest names in yacht design, Tim Haywood and Terence Disdale. These guys aren't just designers, they're like the Picasso and Van Gogh of the yacht world. And they didn't just make a boat, they made a floating beachside villa. Their words, not mine. And if you're worried about safety, because, you know, the ocean can be scary, don't sweat it. Polaris has got backup engines and generators. It's like having a spare car inside your car. Plus, it's got a private deck with views for days, perfect for when you want to feel like you're on top of the world while actually being in the middle of the ocean. Oh, and get this, Polaris can fit more than 60 guests and about 45 crew members. That's like having a small village on your boat. Motor yacht Radiant. Radiant belongs to Abdullah Al Futtaim, the owner of Al Futtaim Group. This guy's not messing around when it comes to his water toys. His yacht is so fancy it's ranked as the 32nd most luxurious super yacht in the world. But it's not just about the bling. This thing is a beast on the water. Let's talk size. Radiant is 360 feet long. That's like parking a football field in the ocean. And it's not just big, it's fast too. This monster can hit speeds of 22 knots. That's like 25 miles per hour, which might not sound like much until you remember we're talking about a floating building here. But Radiant isn't just about going fast, it's about living large. This yacht can carry more than 22 people and 45 crew members. That's like having a small hotel floating around with you. And trust me, these guests aren't roughing it. Radiant's got everything you could want and then some. We're talking swimming decks, helipads, a sauna bath, a massage room, garages, cinema halls, huge seating areas, workout spaces, and hot water baths. It's like they took a five-star resort and said, you know what, let's make it float. The inside of this thing is ridiculous. The interiors were styled by Glee Puschelberg, while Tim Haywood took care of the outside. These guys aren't just designers, they're like the Picasso and Van Gogh of yachts, and they went all out on Radiant. But here's where it gets really crazy. Remember how I said this thing was a floating fortress? I wasn't kidding. Radiant is packed with security features that'd make James Bond jealous. We're talking about a boat that's ready for anything the ocean, or bad guys, might throw at it. And get this, Radiant's fuel tanks can hold more than 9,500 gallons of fuel. That's enough to keep this party going for days on end. No need to worry about running out of gas in the middle of the ocean. Motor Yacht A. You thought floating fortresses were cool. Just wait till you see a yacht that looks like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie. We're talking about Motor Yacht A, the 10th most expensive yacht in the world. This thing costs $323 million, and it's gonna make your head spin. So who owns this crazy boat? Russian businessman Andrei Melnichenko. But forget about the owner for a sec, cause this yacht is the real star of the show. It's not just a boat, it's like a spaceship that decided to take a dip in the ocean. You know how most yachts look kind of the same? Not this one. Motor Yacht A was designed by Philippe Starck, and this guy doesn't do normal. He took one look at traditional yacht design and said, nah, let's make it weird. And boy, did he deliver. This thing is 120 meters long and weighs 6,000 tons. That's like if you took a small apartment building and dumped it in the water. But it's not just big, it's smart too. The walls inside can move around, so you can change up the layout whenever you feel like it. It's like having a giant Lego set, but way fancier. And get this, the main bedroom is 2,500 square feet. That's bigger than most people's entire houses. But Motor Yacht A isn't just about size. This thing is packed with so much cool stuff, it's ridiculous. You like dancing? There's a dance floor. Want to go for a swim? They've got pools with glass bottoms. Need to make a quick getaway? There are helipads for that. And if things really get crazy, there's even a secret escape pod. No, really. But here's where it gets really wild. This yacht is basically Fort Knox on water. We're talking bomb-proof windows, motion detectors, and more cameras than a reality TV show. Serene. This floating palace costs a whopping $330 million, and it's fit for, well, a prince. And not just any prince. This bad boy belongs to Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. When you're next in line for the throne, you need a ride that's gonna make a statement. And boy, does Serene deliver. This thing is massive. We're talking 440 feet of pure luxury. That's longer than a football field. And it's not just big, it's packed with stuff you didn't even know you wanted on a boat. Ever been swimming and thought, man, I wish I could see what's going on underwater without getting wet? Well, Serene's got you covered. It's got an underwater viewing room. Yeah, you heard that right. You can sit in a comfy chair and watch fish swim by like you're at the aquarium. Except, you're not at the aquarium. You're in the middle of the ocean, but that's not even the coolest part. Serene's got a helipad that's not just a helipad, it's like the transformer of helipads. This thing can turn into a swimming pool or a dance floor. No, really. 1 minute you're landing your chopper, the next you're doing the cha-cha slide. That's some next level rich people stuff right there. And if you get bored of dancing on your transforming helipad, as if, don't worry, Serene's got more entertainment than a Vegas casino. We're talking movie theaters, music rooms, meeting spaces, lounges, a sauna, salons, a jacuzzi, and a beach room on a boat in the ocean. Because why go to the beach when you can bring the beach to you? But here's the kicker. This boat's so fancy, even Bill Gates couldn't resist. Yeah, that Bill Gates. Before the Saudi prince bought it, Gates was renting this thing for millions of dollars. When you're renting something for millions, you know it's gotta be good. Serene can fit 25 guests and more than 50 staff. That's right, there are twice as many people working on the boat as there are relaxing on it. Talk about service. Dubai. Super Yacht Dubai, the 8th most expensive yacht in the world. This floating palace costs a mind-blowing $350 million, and it's owned by none other than Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what makes this yacht so special? Let me tell you, this thing is like Dubai itself, over the top, luxurious, and designed to make your jaw drop. It's 162 meters long. That's like stacking up 54 SUVs end to end. And it's not just big for show. This yacht can fit 115 guests and 80 crew members. That's like having a small neighborhood floating on the water. But here's where it gets really crazy. The inside of this boat is so fancy, it'll make your head spin. We're talking about a dining room with a chandelier that's got rubies, emeralds, and pearls in it. No, really, it's like they took a jewelry store and turned it into a light fixture. And don't even get me started on the other features. This yacht's got more open decks than a cruise ship, hot water bathing areas because regular baths are so last century, and a swimming pool with custom designed tiles. These aren't just any tiles. They're made by the finest artisans, because when you're this rich, even your pool tiles gotta be fancy. But wait, there's more. The main staircase on this boat isn't just a way to get from one floor to another, it's a work of art. This thing is circular and changes colors as light hits it. It's like having a disco ball in your stairwell. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what if I get bored on this giant floating palace? Don't worry, they've thought of that too. Super Yacht Dubai's got a movie theater, gyms, and even a squash court. Yeah, you heard that right. You can play squash in the middle of the ocean, because why not? And if you're worried about getting around on this massive boat, don't sweat it. They've got a helipad for that. Want to impress your guests? Land your chopper on your yacht. It's the ultimate power move. But here's the kicker. This yacht isn't just about luxury. It's got some serious power under the hood. Super Yacht Dubai can hit speeds of up to 26 knots. That's like 30 miles per hour, which might not sound fast until you remember we're talking about a floating building here. Rising sun. A media mogul decides to make waves. We're talking about a yacht so fancy, it's like Hollywood decided to set sail. Say hello to Rising Sun, the 7th most expensive yacht in the world. This floating film studio costs a whopping $400 million, and it's owned by none other than David Geffen, the guy who's basically responsible for half the music you listen to. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a greatest hits album of luxury. It's 138.6 meters long. That's like parking 46 limos end to end. And it's not just big for show. This yacht can fit 18 guests and 45 crew members. That's more staff than most fancy hotels. But here's where it gets really crazy. Rising Sun has a basketball court on the main deck. Yeah, you heard that right. You can shoot hoops in the middle of the ocean. But wait, there's more. This court isn't just for basketball. It doubles as a helipad when needed. 1 minute you're playing horse, the next you're watching a chopper land. Talk about a versatile sports venue. And don't even get me started on the other features. This yacht's got more luxury than a Beverly Hills mansion. We're talking a luxury spa, a beauty salon, underwater lights, a wine cellar, and a gymnasium. It's like they took every fancy thing you can think of and said, let's put it on a boat. But Rising Sun isn't just about working out and looking good. It's got some serious entertainment cred too. There's a private cinema with ocean views. Imagine watching Jaws while actually being surrounded by the ocean. That's next level movie night right there. Now you might be wondering, how does all this fit on a boat? Well, Rising Sun has got more than 8,000 square meters of living space spread over 5 levels. That's bigger than most mansions. And if you want to catch some rays, there's 3,300 square meters of deck space layered with teak. Because when you're this rich, even your floorboard's gotta be fancy. But here's the kicker. This yacht isn't just a pretty face. It's got some serious power under the hood. Rising Sun can cruise at 26 knots and hit a top speed of 30 knots. That's like 34 miles per hour, which might not sound fast until you remember we're talking about a floating luxury resort here. Topaz, you thought a basketball court on a yacht was impressive? Wait till you see what happens when a sheikh decides to build his palace on water. We're talking about a boat so fancy, it makes other billionaires' yachts look like rubber duckies. Say hello to Topaz, the 6th most expensive yacht in the world. This floating kingdom costs a mind-blowing $527 million, and it's owned by Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, a member of the royal family of Abu Dhabi. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a floating country club on steroids. It's got a soccer field. Yeah, you heard that right, a soccer field on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Because why play soccer on land when you can kick balls into the sea? But that's not even the craziest part. Topaz has got more fun stuff than a theme park. We're talking about a swimming platform, a gym, a movie theater, and a disco hall. It's like they took every fun thing you can think of and said, let's put it on a boat. And for when the sheikh needs to do some royal business. There's a huge conference room, because nothing says important meeting like discussing world affairs while floating in the Mediterranean. This thing is massive. It's 482 feet long. That's like parking 40 school buses end to end. And it's not just big, it's fancy too. The interiors were designed by Terence Disdale, while the exteriors were done by Tim Haywood. These guys aren't just designers, they're like the Picasso and Van Gogh of yacht world. But Topaz isn't just about looking pretty. This bad boy can move. It can hit speeds of about 25 knots. That's like 29 miles per hour, which might not sound fast until you remember we're talking about a floating palace here. And get this, Topaz has got 8 decks. 8. That's more levels than some apartment buildings. And if you're worried about getting around on this massive boat, don't sweat it. They've got dual helipads for that, because one helipad just isn't enough when you're this rich. Now you might be wondering, how many people can party on this thing? Well, Topaz can fit 62 guests in 26 luxurious rooms. And to keep everything shipshape, there's a crew of 50. That's right, almost one staff member for every guest. Talk about service. But here's the kicker. This yacht isn't just for the sheikh to chill on. Topaz is often used for high-profile events and gatherings. Al Saed. This floating symphony costs a jaw-dropping $600 million, and it's owned by none other than Sultan Qaboos bin Saad Al Saed of Oman. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a floating country. It's 156 meters long. That's like lining up 52 SUVs end to end. And it's not just big for show. This yacht can fit more than 75 guests and over 150 crew members. That's more people than some small towns. But here's where it gets really crazy. Al Saed has got its own concert hall. Yeah, you heard that right. A concert hall on a boat in the middle of the ocean. This isn't just some dinky little karaoke room either. We're talking about a professional-grade concert hall where you can have actual performances. Imagine watching a symphony while floating in the Arabian Sea. That's some next-level entertainment right there. And don't even get me started on the other features. This yacht's got more luxury than an Omani palace. We're talking about 6 open-deck areas, luxurious master bedrooms, jacuzzis, and helipads. It's like they took everything fancy you can think of and said, let's put it on a boat. But Al Saed isn't just about looking pretty. This bad boy can move. It can hit a maximum speed of 25 knots and cruise at about 23 knots. That's like 29 miles per hour, which might not sound fast until you remember we're talking about a floating concert hall here. Now you might be wondering, how does all this fit on a boat? Well, Al Saed's got a steel and aluminum structure that's tougher than your average yacht. And the design? It's all about that Omani style. The exteriors were done by Espen Oino, while the interiors were handcrafted by Redmond Whiteley Dixon. These aren't just designers, they're like the Picasso and Van Gogh of yacht world. But here's the kicker. This yacht isn't just a party boat, it's a floating piece of Omani culture. Everything from the design to the features screams royal Omani taste. It's like they took a slice of Oman and set it adrift on the high seas. Dilbar Super Yacht. Dilbar is the 4th most expensive yacht in the world. This floating giant costs a mind-blowing $600 million, and it used to belong to Alisher Usmanov, a Russian oligarch who's got more money than some small countries. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a floating luxury resort on steroids. It's got a swimming pool that'll make your jaw drop. We're not talking about some kiddie pool here. This is a 25-meter monster that holds 180 cubic meters of water. That's the biggest pool ever built on a yacht. It's like they took an Olympic-sized pool and said, nah, let's make it bigger and stick it on a boat. But Dilbar ain't just about swimming. This thing is massive. We're talking 156 meters long. That's like lining up 52 school buses end to end. And it's not just long, it's wide too. With a beam of 23 meters, this yacht is so big it barely fits through some ports. It's like trying to parallel park a skyscraper. And get this, Dilbar can fit 36 guests and 96 crew members. That's right, there are almost 3 times as many staff as there are guests. Talk about service. It's like having your own floating hotel where everyone knows your name. But here's where it gets really crazy. This yacht isn't just big, it's fancy too. We're talking about a steel hull, an aluminum superstructure, and a classic profile with a light ivory hull. It's like they took a luxury cruise ship and gave it a makeover. Now you might be wondering, what's all this luxury for if you can't show it off? Well, that's where things get interesting. See, Dilbar used to be the crown jewel of Usmanov's collection. But in 2022, things took a wild turn. The German authorities seized this floating palace as part of sanctions against Russian oligarchs during the invasion of Ukraine. Azam. When a sheikh decides to build a boat that's basically a rocket ship on water, We're talking about a yacht so fast it makes other boats look like they're standing still. Say hello to Azam, the third most expensive yacht in the world. This floating speed demon costs a mind-blowing $650 million, and it belongs to Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the president of the United Arab Emirates. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a Ferrari crossed with a luxury hotel. It's 590 feet long. That's longer than some cruise ships. But here's the kicker. It can go faster than your average speedboat. We're talking about a top speed of more than 35 knots. That's like 40 miles per hour on a boat the size of a football field. But Azam ain't just about speed. This yacht is packed with so much cool stuff, it's ridiculous. It's got no pillars inside. No, really. They built this whole massive boat without any columns holding it up. It's like they took the laws of physics and said, nah, we're good. And don't even get me started on the fancy stuff inside. This yacht's got more luxury than a royal palace. We're talking about 55 suites that'll make your jaw drop. The inside looks like something straight out of a medieval castle, but with all the modern bells and whistles. But here's where it gets really crazy. Building the world's fastest super yacht wasn't easy. They had to make it super light, but also super strong. It's like trying to build a tank that can float and go really fast. The engineers probably had more headaches than a kid with too much ice cream. And get this, Azam's got all sorts of cool features. It's got swimming pools, a golf course, and not one but two helicopter landing pads. Because why have one when you can have two, right? There's even a gym facing the sea. Imagine working out while watching dolphins swim by. That's some next level fitness right there. But Azam isn't just about looking pretty and going fast. This thing is tough too. It's got the latest technology dual engines, and it takes 85 highly trained crew members to keep it running smooth. Eclipse. You thought a speed demon yacht was impressive? Wait till you see what happens when a Russian billionaire decides to turn his boat into a floating fortress. We're talking about a yacht so secure it makes Fort Knox look like a cardboard box. Say hello to Eclipse, the second most expensive yacht in the world. This floating tank costs a mind-blowing $1.5 billion, and it belongs to Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire who used to own the Chelsea soccer club. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like a James Bond movie come to life. It's got a missile detection system. Yeah, you heard that right. A missile detection system on a boat. It's like they took every spy gadget you can think of and said, let's put it on water. But that's not even the craziest part. Eclipse has got bulletproof windows and more cameras than a reality TV show. It's like they're expecting a naval invasion at any moment. And get this, it's got a laser system that stops people from taking pictures. No, really, it's like they've got paparazzi repelling force field. But Eclipse ain't just about keeping the bad guys out. This thing is packed with more fun stuff than Disneyland. We're talking about 2 helipads, 23 guest cabins, a dance hall, and even a mini submarine. It's like they took a luxury resort and a military base and smooshed them together. And don't even get me started on the size. This floating fortress is 536 feet long. That's longer than some cruise ships. It's got swimming pools, hot tubs, and a beach club near the main deck. Because why go to the beach when you can bring the beach to you? But here's where it gets really wild. The inside of this thing is so fancy, it'll make your head spin. The interiors were designed by Terence Disdale, a guy who's renovated more than 40 super yachts. This ain't his first rodeo, and it shows. We're talking about the kind of luxury that makes 5-star hotels look like motel rooms. History supreme. Now, the most expensive yacht in the world. This floating bank vault costs a mind-blowing $4.8 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. $4.8 billion. That's more money than some countries' entire economies. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's so special about this boat? Let me tell you, this thing is like King Midas went on a shopping spree. It's covered in 100,000 kilograms of gold and platinum. No, really, the whole boat is basically a giant piece of jewelry. Even the anchor is made of precious metals. It's like they looked at regular yachts and said, nah, not shiny enough. But that's not even the craziest part. History Supreme has got a wall made from meteorites. Yeah, you heard that right. Meteorites from space. It's like they decided regular walls were too boring and went straight for alien rocks. And if that wasn't enough, they've got decorations made from dinosaur bones. Because why hang up a painting when you can display a T-Rex? Now you might be wondering, who owns this floating gold mine? Well, that's a mystery. Some people say it's an anonymous Malaysian businessman. Others think it might be Robert Kwok, a super rich guy from Malaysia. But whoever it is, they're not telling. It's like they're playing a real-life game of Guess Who with billionaires. But here's where things get weird. Some people say this yacht doesn't even exist. Yeah, you heard that right. There are folks out there who think History Supreme is just a big shiny myth. It's like the Loch Ness monster of the yacht world. People have been arguing about whether it's real or not for years. So is there really a $4.8 billion yacht out there covered in gold and decorated with dinosaur bones? Or is it just a story someone made up to mess with us? We might never know for sure. But one thing's certain, whether it's real or not, History Supreme has got everyone talking. And in the world of mega-rich yachting, sometimes that's all that matters.